Hello everyone. Welcome to Six Path Weeb. Today, we're diving into a fanfic twist that's bound to stir the Hidden Leaf Village. What if Naruko and Sasuke were secretly in love? Get ready for an emotional rollercoaster, unexpected bonds, and a reimagined dynamic between two of the most iconic shinobi. Disclaimer: this content is purely for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any of the anime footage or characters used. All rights and credits belong to their original creators and copyright holders. Let's jump into the story. It's about to get intense. The sun peeked through the trees of the Hidden Leaf Village, scattering dappled shadows over the narrow dirt paths that wound between the training grounds and rooftops. It was a bright morning, full of buzzing energy. Academy students raced through the village streets, shouting about upcoming jutsu tests, throwing paper shuriken at one another, and laughing as they leapt across wooden fences. Among them, two young shinobi in training stood out, not because they were friends, but because they couldn't stand each other. Naruko Uzumaki, a loud, stubborn, orange-loving whirlwind of chaos, was already making a name for herself, even at 8 years old. With her sunbright hair pulled up in twin puffs and a fierce grin on her face, she ran through the village yelling about how she'd become Hokage one day. She was brash, always eager to prove herself, and entirely unaware that her loud declarations grated on the nerves of just about everyone, especially one particular boy. Sasuke Uchiha was everything Naruko wasn't: quiet, composed, and impossibly cool. He sat under a tree near the academy training grounds, dark eyes half lidded as he studied the kunai in his hands. His hair was always perfectly in place, his movements fluid and precise. He never raised his voice, never chased after attention, and everyone noticed him because of it. Girls whispered about him in the halls, and the teachers always praised his perfect technique. The first time they met properly was during a basic taijutsu sparring match at the academy. The teacher had randomly paired them together, much to everyone's surprise and horror. "This'll be over fast," one student whispered. Naruko huffed and stomped into the ring, clenching her fists. Sasuke simply gave a disinterested glance and rolled his shoulders. "I'm gonna beat you," Naruko shouted across the ring. Sasuke raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Tch. Loudmouth." It started badly and only got worse. Naruko lunged with pure energy but no technique, yelling wildly as she tried to punch him. Sasuke dodged without even looking bothered, stepping aside with elegance and landing a gentle tap on her shoulder. She tumbled forward into the dirt, face first. "You fight like a toddler," Sasuke said with a sigh. Naruko popped up, red-cheeked and furious. "You jerk. I'm still learning." "You'll never be Hokage like that," he muttered. That single comment lit a fire in Naruko that burned hotter than 1,000 ramen bowls. She swore then and there that Sasuke Uchiha would regret ever insulting her. From that day, a rivalry began, not quiet or respectful, but loud, obnoxious, and full of accidental punches to the nose. They bickered constantly. In class, they competed for attention, even though Naruko never actually beat him in written tests or physical training. On missions, they clashed over everything from strategy to snack breaks. Naruko loved instant ramen and sweet bean paste buns, Sasuke preferred grilled fish and cold soba. She adored bright colors and weird frogs, he liked silence and night skies. They were different in almost every way. But somewhere, under all that yelling and competition, something subtle began to shift. Naruko noticed that when she was feeling down, when kids whispered about her behind her back or when teachers overlooked her in favor of others, Sasuke never joined in. He stayed quiet, but his eyes sometimes lingered a second too long, watching her with an unreadable expression. And Sasuke, though he'd never admit it aloud, started to respect her spirit. No matter how many times she lost or failed, Naruko never stopped trying. She trained longer than anyone else. She fell and got up 1,000 times. She was stubborn, annoying, and far too loud, but she never gave up. Somewhere deep inside, Sasuke began to wonder what it would be like to have that kind of heart. They still hated each other, of course. At least, that's what they told everyone. They still argued over everything: who got the better jutsu, who got more dengo from Lady Tsunade's private stash, whose name would be remembered first in the history books. But sometimes, when the sun set just right, and the village rooftops glowed orange like her favorite jacket, they'd end up sitting nearby without yelling. Not talking. Just watching the sky in a rare moment of quiet. They never meant to fall into something like friendship. And they certainly didn't mean for something deeper to start growing there, quietly, beneath the leaves and the noise. It happened during the second semester of their academy training, in the middle of the rainy season. The skies had been pouring for hours, drenching the village in a steady rhythm of cold drops. Most students had gone home early after the day's lesson on chakra control, clutching umbrellas or running under cloaks. But Naruko had stayed behind, determined to master walking up a tree without using her hands. She'd failed 4 times already, leaving marks in the bark and dirt all over her clothes, but she refused to leave until she nailed it. From the window of the classroom, Sasuke noticed her. Most wouldn't have bothered looking, Naruko often trained past reason, but something about the way she kept climbing, falling, then growling and starting over made him linger a moment longer. She didn't see him standing in the shadow of the hallway, watching as she pushed through exhaustion. Her hair stuck to her face, soaked, her fingers scraped from where she'd gripped the trunk too hard. Still, she gritted her teeth and kept going. No dramatic speeches. No wild yelling. Just stubborn persistence, burning as bright as ever. By the time she slumped at the base of the tree, trembling slightly from the cold, the courtyard had emptied. Puddles reflected the dull gray sky, and a breeze swept through, chilling her even more. Naruko wrapped her arms around her knees, pretending she wasn't shivering. That's when something hit the ground beside her with a soft thump. She glanced up, startled. A towel. A dry one. No footsteps. No voice. Just the soft sound of rain and the quiet rustle of leaves. Naruko grabbed the towel, blinking. It was dark blue, simple, and smelled faintly of soap and something clean, like new laundry hung indoors. She looked around, but no one was in sight. She didn't need to ask who had left it. The next day, she didn't mention it. Neither did he. But a week later, when Sasuke twisted his ankle during a team relay, landing hard while evading a trap wire, Naruko didn't hesitate. The other students stared, unsure of what to do, too afraid to offer help to the Uchiha prodigy. But she moved instantly. "You're not walking home like that," she muttered, throwing his arm over her shoulder without waiting for permission. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. "I can manage." "You're limping like a grandma," she shot back. He didn't argue again. They made it halfway to the medical station in near silence. Then, from her pocket, she pulled out a small, misshapen rice ball. It was wrapped clumsily, like it had been made in a rush. "Here," she said, looking everywhere but at him. "What is that?" "Lunch. I made it." "Kind of." She hesitated. "Sort of. Well, mostly stole the rice from Iruka-sensei's snack table." He took it, more out of surprise than anything. She didn't wait to see if he ate it. But later that evening, she found the wrapper tucked into the corner of the training field, not in the trash, but resting carefully on a flat rock, as if someone had saved it. They never talked about those moments, not really. But after that, Naruko sometimes found small bandages left on her desk when she scraped her knuckles. And Sasuke noticed little things appearing beside his gear, a freshwater canteen, a polished kunai, once even a tiny frog charm tied to his pouch strap. He didn't take it off. None of it was flashy or dramatic. But the kindness was real. Hidden in towels and rice balls, quiet in their own strange way. And though they still pretended to loathe each other in front of the others, something had shifted, subtle as wind, sure as sunrise. They were still rivals. But now, somewhere beneath all that, they were something more. Time had a strange way of moving in the Hidden Leaf Village. Days could drag during boring missions and speed past when training felt right. Seasons slipped from green to gold, then to icy white. And somewhere during the quiet changes, Team 7 was split for a brief while, just long enough for things to be noticed. Naruko was sent on a week-long mission to the Land of Rivers with Kiba and Hinata, a basic reconnaissance job. She was thrilled at first, excited to prove she could take on a mission without making a mess of things. She even packed her favorite instant noodles, a Lucky Frog sticker, and 3 bright hair ties just in case. The village seemed smaller without her. Sasuke didn't think much of it that first day. In fact, when the classroom door didn't burst open in the morning with her usual shout, he assumed it would be a quieter week. It wasn't. Without her chatter echoing through the training fields, the silence felt sharp, like a kunai that had lost its edge. The sparring sessions were too neat. No one argued over who got to go first. Even the air seemed still, as though the wind itself waited for her to come barreling back through it. Sasuke trained longer than usual that week, trying to ignore the absence like it didn't matter. He threw shuriken at targets until the tree bark split in perfect lines. He worked on chakra flow until the soles of his shoes smoked. But no matter how fast or hard he moved, the world around him stayed too quiet. And then there were the odd things, like how he'd glance behind him after a joke from Kiba, expecting a snort or a loud laugh that never came. Or how he caught himself packing an extra fruit bun after lunch, one he didn't even like. He never said it aloud. But the space Naruko left behind was louder than her presence had ever been. Naruko, on the other hand, was busy pretending she didn't care. The mission went well, nothing serious, just tracking and observation, but whenever the group set up camp, she found herself staring off into the trees. Kiba noticed. "You okay? You're awfully quiet tonight." "I'm just thinking," she said, picking at her food. "About ramen?" She paused. "No. Not really." It was weird, she realized, how used to certain things she'd become. Like how Sasuke always stood to the left when they fought together. Or how he never said much, but somehow made it clear when it was time to move. Or how he made eye contact just once before a battle and that was enough to understand what came next. The others were fine, Hinata was kind, Kiba was strong, but something felt off. She missed arguing. She missed being challenged. She missed him. The last night of the mission, she sat under a tree, knees pulled to her chest, and looked up at the stars. They were scattered like chakra points across a night sky. She frowned. "Stupid duck hair boy," she muttered, cheeks warm for no reason. When she returned, the village hadn't changed, but Sasuke was already at the gates before she even crossed them. He said nothing when she approached, covered in dirt and dust, dragging a half-torn scroll bag behind her. "You're back," he said simply. Naruko blinked. Yeah. Obviously." A long pause followed. Then, without looking at her, Sasuke held something out. A small, folded square of paper. She took it, puzzled. Inside was a scribbled map of a hidden spot by the riverbanks, a quiet place, shaded by trees, perfect for practice. "You fell behind on your training," he said, eyes still not meeting hers. "You saved a spot for me?" He shrugged. It was getting boring without a proper sparring partner. Naruko grinned, slipping the map into her pocket. "Well, I'm back now." "Good." They didn't talk more after that, but something in the way their steps synced as they walked away said enough. The silence between them wasn't awkward anymore, it was filled with something quiet and warm. For the first time, without either of them realizing it fully, they understood what missing someone really meant. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was simple. And it mattered. The mission came 2 weeks after Naruko returned. It was supposed to be simple, a routine border patrol near the Forest of Death, one of the more dangerous zones near Konoha. They weren't alone, their full team was assigned, along with a few backup chunin. The objective was to scout the area for suspicious movement reported by a merchant caravan. Bandits were suspected, maybe rogue genin. Nothing too serious, or so they were told. Naruko was buzzing with energy. She hadn't had a proper mission with Sasuke in weeks, and even if she'd never say it out loud, she was looking forward to showing him how much she'd improved. She leapt from branch to branch with practiced ease, her eyes scanning the undergrowth. Sasuke followed from above, silent as ever, his gaze sweeping the horizon. He didn't say much, he never did, but now and then, his eyes would flick to her, tracking her movements. She was sharper now. More precise. Less yelling, more thinking. And then everything went wrong. They found the attackers just as the sun dipped below the trees. But they weren't bandits. They weren't even missing Nin. These were mercenaries trained in camouflage, chakra suppression, and tactical ambush. Clearly hired for something bigger. The first strike came fast, a shower of senbon from the trees. The team scattered. Shouts rang out. Smoke bombs filled the air with thick clouds. Visibility dropped to nothing. Naruko's first instinct was to charge forward, but a hand shot out, stopping her mid-step. "Sasuke." "Wait," he whispered, eyes narrowed. "They want you to run. That's the trap." She hesitated, then nodded. They moved together, back to back, sliding into a tighter position near a fallen log. Shuriken zipped past their heads. Sasuke deflected 2 with his kunai. Naruko summoned a shadow clone to push an enemy off balance. Her heart pounded, but she wasn't afraid, not really. Not with him at her side. Then, out of the smoke, a rogue ninja leapt towards Sasuke from behind. Naruko didn't think. She lunged between them, taking the blow across her shoulder. Pain shot through her arm like fire. She stumbled but didn't fall. Sasuke's eyes widened. "You idiot," he snapped, catching her before she hit the ground. "You're welcome," she grunted, clutching her arm. He turned back toward the attacker, Sharingan flickering to life. The fight ended in seconds. The enemy hit the ground, unconscious. But Sasuke wasn't done. When the field finally cleared and the others regrouped, he stayed close to her, his hand brushing hers once, accidentally, maybe. She didn't pull away. Later, while the med nin cleaned her wound, she kept wincing. It wasn't even that bad, she muttered. Just a scratch. You're a terrible liar, Sasuke said quietly. She looked at him. I should have blocked it, he added, voice lower. You didn't see it coming. That's not your fault. It is, he replied, gaze steady. She blinked, then gave a crooked smile. Well, now we're even. You gave me a towel once. I took a hit. Fair trade. He didn't laugh, but the corner of his mouth twitched. And then, as the others prepared camp and night fell over the forest, Sasuke stayed by her side. Not talking. Just there. Not as a teammate. Not as a rival. As something else. He hadn't needed to protect her in the end, not with her moving faster than instinct. But she had stepped in without hesitation. That mattered. For her part, Naruko had no regrets. She'd do it again, 100 times over. It wasn't just a mission anymore. It was him. The village was alive with color and light. Lanterns floated in the warm evening breeze, painting the streets with soft glows of red, gold, and blue. The summer festival had come again, filling Hidden Leaf with the sounds of laughter, the scent of sweet mochi, and the rhythmic beat of drums echoing through the air. For the first time in a long while, the tension of missions and training felt miles away, replaced by music and celebration. Naruko tugged at Sasuke's sleeve, her eyes sparkling brighter than the fireworks overhead. Come on. Let's try the spinning tops. I bet I'll beat you this time. Sasuke raised an eyebrow but followed, the corner of his mouth twitching just slightly. He wasn't used to festivals. The noise, the crowds, it was almost overwhelming. But with Naruko there, it felt different. Easier. At the game stall, children and adults alike were spinning colorful tops, cheering as the toys whirled faster and faster. Naruko launched hers with all her might, eyes focused. Sasuke's was smooth and controlled, spinning perfectly but without flair. Ha! Naruko shouted as her top wobbled Sasuke's just enough to win. She threw her hands up triumphantly, grinning wide. See? Told you. He shook his head, pretending to be annoyed. Beginner's luck. They wandered deeper into the festival, past food stalls and puppet shows. The air was warm, filled with the mingling scents of grilled corn, candied apples, and the subtle hint of incense. Naruko suddenly stopped, looking up at a small shrine lit by paper lanterns. She traced a finger on the smooth wooden rail, her smile fading into something softer. Hey, she said quietly, have you ever made a wish here? Sasuke tilted his head. No. Do you? Maybe, she admitted, eyes downcast. But I don't really know what to wish for. For a moment, they stood side by side in silence, the sounds of the festival dimming around them. Naruko took a deep breath. I guess. I wish things would stay like this. You and me. No fighting, no missions, just this. Sasuke's eyes flicked to hers, searching. He didn't answer right away. Me too, he finally said, voice low and steady. Her heart skipped. She glanced away, cheeks warm. That's stupid. No. It's not. He looked down at the ground, then back at her. I don't know how to say it, but you matter. Naruko blinked. For the first time, the noise in her head, the endless battle of wanting to shout and wanting to hide, quieted. She smiled, a little shy but bright. Guess that makes two of us. Above them, fireworks exploded in bursts of gold and purple, lighting the sky like a secret just shared. Neither said anything more. But sometimes, words weren't needed. The morning after the festival was bright and clear, sunlight spilling through the windows of the academy like a fresh start. Naruko bounced into the training yard, her cheeks still tinged pink from the previous night's excitement. She spotted Sasuke practicing quietly, his stance perfect and controlled as always. Without warning, she crept up behind him, a mischievous grin spreading across her face. Hey, Uchiha. Bet you can't catch me. Before he could react, Naruko darted forward, weaving between trees and leaping over rocks with the effortless energy of a fox. Sasuke's eyes narrowed, but a faint smile tugged at his lips as he sprang into pursuit. Their chase echoed through the training grounds, laughter bursting from Naruko's lips and Sasuke's soft, steady breaths following close behind. Branches swayed, leaves scattered, and the world seemed to shrink until it was just the two of them, wrapped in the pure joy of the moment. Naruko suddenly stopped, spinning around to face him. Caught you, she declared, holding out her hands as if to trap him. Sasuke raised an eyebrow but didn't move. You forgot one thing. What? First, you have to catch me, he said, stepping closer, voice low and teasing. Her grin faltered for a heartbeat before turning into a challenge. Game on. They launched at each other in a tangle of arms and laughter, the friendly fight ending with them sprawled on the grass, breathless but smiling. Naruko nudged his side. You're slow. Sasuke smirked. You're loud. Yeah, but I win. He shook his head, eyes sparkling. For now. In that moment, there was no rivalry, just two friends who had found something rare and precious, a kind of happiness that didn't need words. The afternoon sun filtered softly through the leaves, casting gentle shadows on the grassy hill where Naruko and Sasuke sat side by side. The village buzzed faintly below, but here, it was peaceful, a hidden pocket of calm away from the noise of training and missions. Naruko kicked at a pebble, glancing sideways at Sasuke. He was quiet today, his usual cool composure softened just enough to be almost inviting. Hey, she began, voice low. What's on your mind? Sasuke looked up, eyes steady but thoughtful. Nothing important. Just thinking. She nodded, pretending not to notice the slight crease between his brows. I don't really talk about it much, he said after a pause, but sometimes, it gets heavy. The expectations, the family. The future. Naruko turned to him, her expression open. I get that. Everyone expects the loudest, fastest, strongest version of me all the time. It's exhausting. He gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. You're not just loud and fast. Yeah? What else? He shrugged. More than I expected. Naruko laughed softly, a sound full of relief. You're not so bad yourself. Even if you act like you don't care. Sasuke's gaze dropped to their intertwined hands for a moment before he shifted to face her fully. Thanks for being here, he said quietly. She squeezed his hand, heart fluttering. Always. For a while, they sat like that, quiet, together, with nothing more to say but everything understood. Naruko and Sasuke, a slow burn. The days that followed the festival and their shared mission passed with a quiet rhythm. The village pulsed with its usual energy, but for Naruko and Sasuke, time seemed to slow whenever they were together. Training sessions were no longer about competition. Instead, they learned from one another. Sasuke noticed how Naruko's relentless enthusiasm masked a deep need to prove herself, while Naruko saw how Sasuke's calm exterior guarded a well of loneliness. One afternoon, under the tall trees near the training grounds, Sasuke demonstrated a precise hand seal sequence, his movements fluid and deliberate. Naruko watched closely, her brows furrowed in concentration. Again, Sasuke said softly, not looking at her. Naruko mimicked the sequence, but her fingers stumbled. Frustration crept in. Sasuke finally glanced at her and gave a small smile. You're rushing. Am not, Naruko snapped, cheeks flushing. Slow down, he advised. Control is better than speed. Naruko took a deep breath and tried again, this time moving deliberately. Sasuke nodded approvingly. They spent hours like this, side by side. Sometimes speaking. Sometimes silent. But always present. During breaks, they shared small snacks. Naruko offered him a piece of dengo she had saved. Sasuke, in return, showed her a rare flower he'd found on his morning walk. Neither said much, but their smiles said enough. One evening, as the sun dipped low, they sat by the riverbank. Naruko tossed stones into the water, watching the ripples spread. You think we'll always be this way? She asked quietly. Sasuke shrugged. I don't know. But I like it. Naruko smiled, her heart warming. Their friendship wasn't flashy or dramatic, it was steady, like the river's flow. Each day added a new layer of trust, a deeper understanding. And beneath it all, something tender grew, slowly, surely, like a seed waiting to bloom. Days stretched on, each one folding softly into the next, like pages turning in a quiet book. Naruko and Sasuke continued their routines, their friendship growing with every shared glance, every unspoken understanding. One afternoon, they were training again near the river, their favorite spot. The air was warm but gentle, carrying the scent of blooming flowers and fresh water. Naruko had been trying to master a new jutsu, a tricky fire technique that required steady focus and control. Sasuke stood nearby, watching, his arms crossed but his eyes sharp and encouraging. Try to feel the chakra flow like a river, he said calmly. Not like a storm. Naruko gritted her teeth, cheeks flushed with effort, and released the jutsu. A small burst of flame flickered, then sputtered out. Not bad, Sasuke admitted quietly. You're improving. Naruko grinned, wiping sweat from her brow. Only because I have a great teacher. Sasuke's lips twitched in a rare smile. As they rested, Naruko looked over at him, the sunlight catching the sharp angles of his face, the way his dark hair fell across his forehead. For the first time, she saw him not just as the stoic rival or distant teammate, but as someone who mattered deeply to her. Her heart fluttered, a strange, new feeling she hadn't quite understood before. Sasuke, meanwhile, was feeling the same odd flutter. He noticed how her eyes lit up when she smiled, how her laughter was a bright spark that broke through the quiet walls he had built around himself. He found himself wanting to be near her, to protect her not just from enemies, but from loneliness. Later that evening, as the sun dipped beneath the horizon and painted the sky with hues of pink and gold, they walked home together in comfortable silence. Naruko suddenly stopped and looked at Sasuke, cheeks warm. Hey! Have you ever thought about what it means to like someone? Sasuke blinked, caught off guard by the question. He looked away, the faintest shadow crossing his features. Sometimes, he said softly. She swallowed hard, heart racing. I think I'm starting to understand. His eyes met hers, steady and calm. Me too. The words hung between them, simple and powerful. Neither rushed to say more. No grand declarations, just a quiet acknowledgement that something had shifted, something deeper than friendship. They smiled shyly, the night wrapping around them like a gentle promise. From that moment on, everything felt different. The way they trained, laughed, and shared secrets, it was all tinged with a new warmth, a growing love that neither could ignore. The next morning, Naruko arrived at the training grounds earlier than usual, eager to practice. She spotted Sasuke already there, stretching quietly under the rising sun. Her heart sped up before she even reached him, cheeks warming at the thought of being so close. Hey, she said, trying to sound casual but missing by a mile. Sasuke looked up, his dark eyes catching hers. Morning. The single word hung between them, simple yet charged. Naruko fidgeted with the straps on her gloves. So. About yesterday. Sasuke tilted his head, waiting. I mean, it was nice, talking like that. About feelings, she added quickly, cheeks burning. Not that I'm weird or anything. He blinked, a flicker of amusement crossing his face. You're not weird. That made her smile, a little breathless. They began training, but the air felt different, thick with something unspoken. During a sparring drill, Naruko tried to focus, but every time Sasuke glanced her way, her heart stumbled. When she missed a block, Sasuke caught her arm gently. Careful. She looked up, surprised by the softness in his voice. Thanks. They both turned away quickly, pretending to study the ground, though their cheeks burned. Later, they walked back to the village together. Naruko kicked a small pebble down the path. Do you think we're weird for feeling like this? She asked hesitantly. Sasuke considered, then nodded slowly. Maybe. But not in a bad way. Naruko laughed nervously. Good, because I'm totally weird. Sasuke smirked. Me too. They shared a smile, awkward but real. One afternoon, while practicing shuriken throwing, Sasuke accidentally tossed one too close to Naruko's face. She jumped back, heart pounding. Sorry, he said quickly, his usual calm faltering. It's okay, she replied, trying to steady her breathing. Just don't try to kill me. He chuckled, the sound rare and warm. Their friendship was shifting, bending under the weight of feelings neither quite knew how to handle. But in every awkward glance, every stammered word, there was something true growing, a bond that neither wanted to lose. The sun was setting, casting a warm orange glow over the training field. Naruko and Sasuke sat side by side on a fallen log, their shoulders nearly touching. Neither spoke much, but the silence between them was comfortable, charged with unspoken feelings. Naruko's fingers nervously played with a loose thread on her sleeve. She stole a glance at Sasuke, whose gaze was fixed on the horizon, jaw tight. She started, then stopped. Her heart was pounding like a drum. Sasuke shifted slightly, turning his head just enough to meet her eyes. His voice was low, hesitant. Naruko, there's something I want to say. Her breath caught. Me too, she whispered. They looked away at the same time, cheeks flushed, words tangled in their throats. Naruko's voice was barely audible. Maybe we should wait. Sasuke nodded slowly, relief and disappointment mingling in his expression. Yeah. When the time's right. They shared a shy smile, the kind that spoke volumes without needing words. As the sky deepened into twilight, they stayed close, their hearts quietly weaving together, step by slow step. Spring settled over the village like a soft blanket, bringing with it blooming cherry blossoms that dusted the streets with delicate pink petals. The air smelled faintly of fresh earth and hope, and the world seemed brighter, warmer, mirroring the subtle change blooming between Naruko and Sasuke. Their days began to carry a new rhythm, one filled with gentle teasing, shared smiles, and those tiny gestures that spoke louder than words. It wasn't rushed or dramatic, it was quiet and true. One afternoon, as they trained beneath the cherry trees, Naruko tripped over a root and stumbled, nearly falling. Sasuke's hand shot out instinctively, steadying her before she could hit the ground. Their eyes locked for a moment, surprise and something softer flickering between them. "You okay?" Sasuke asked, his voice unusually gentle. Naruko blinked, her face flushing. "Yeah. Thanks." After that, Sasuke found himself watching her more often, noticing how her eyes sparkled when she laughed, how fiercely she refused to give up no matter how tough the training. Naruko, on the other hand, was discovering the warmth behind Sasuke's quiet reserve, the way he cared without needing to say it, how he protected without being overbearing. During breaks, they'd sit under the blooming trees, sharing snacks or simply enjoying the silence together. Sasuke began to bring her small gifts, wildflowers he picked on his walks, a rare berry he found in the forest, each one carefully chosen, simple but meaningful. Naruko treasured these tokens, slipping them into her pouch like little secrets. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of gold, Sasuke walked Naruko home. Their footsteps matched, slow and steady, hearts beating in a rhythm that felt like belonging. At her doorstep, neither wanted to say goodbye. Naruko bit her lip, then smiled softly. "See you tomorrow?" Sasuke nodded. "Tomorrow." Before she closed the door, their hands brushed briefly, a fleeting touch, electric and tender. Inside, Naruko's heart raced, a smile lingering on her lips. Sasuke watched the stars from his window, thinking of her, the way she made the world feel lighter, the way his own walls were starting to crumble. Their love wasn't a sudden blaze, but a steady flame, growing brighter each day, warming them both in ways they were only beginning to understand. It was late afternoon, and the sky was painted in soft shades of lavender and rose. After a long day of training, Naruko and Sasuke walked through a quiet forest path just outside the village, the rustling leaves whispering around them. Naruko's steps slowed, her gaze dropping to the uneven ground beneath their feet. Sasuke noticed, matching her pace without a word. Suddenly, a breeze swept through the trees, stirring the petals and leaves in a gentle swirl. Naruko shivered slightly, wrapping her arms around herself. Without thinking, Sasuke reached out, his fingers brushing against hers. She glanced up, surprised, her eyes wide. He hesitated for just a moment before his hand closed softly around hers. Naruko's breath hitched. Neither spoke as they continued walking, their fingers intertwined, the simple touch sending warmth racing through them both. Her heart pounded loudly in the quiet forest, but her smile was calm, shy, and sure. Sasuke stole a quick glance at her, catching the light in her eyes, a mixture of nervousness and happiness. In that moment, words weren't necessary. Their hands held together said everything they couldn't quite put into speech yet: trust, hope, and a quiet promise that this was only the beginning. As the seasons shifted, so did the nature of Naruko and Sasuke's relationship. What had once been a cautious friendship, marked by stolen glances and shy smiles, began to blossom into something more tender, something neither of them had quite expected but both welcomed quietly. Their dates were simple affairs at first, born out of shared moments rather than grand plans. They wandered together through the village markets, where the air was heavy with the scent of fresh bread and spices, and where Naruko delighted in dragging Sasuke toward the stalls selling sweet treats. Sasuke would watch with mild amusement as she sampled every colorful candy, her eyes sparkling with delight. He preferred the savory snacks but found himself sneaking tastes of her favorites just to feel connected in the small, everyday ways that mattered most. On other days, they found refuge in the peaceful glades surrounding the village. Beneath towering trees, they would sit quietly, sometimes sharing stories of their childhoods, their voices low and sincere. Sasuke spoke rarely of his family, but when he did, his tone was guarded yet honest. Naruko listened with a soft empathy that surprised even herself. In those moments, the walls Sasuke kept carefully built around his heart seemed to lower just a little, revealing the boy beneath the stoic exterior. Their conversations were sprinkled with gentle teasing, playful challenges, and laughter that grew easier with each meeting. Sasuke's sharp wit found a perfect foil in Naruko's spirited energy. She would mock his seriousness with a cheeky grin, and he would respond with a dry remark that made her laugh all the louder. It was in these exchanges that they discovered a comfortable rhythm, a dance of personalities that complemented and balanced one another. The physical closeness between them grew naturally, too, unfolding like the petals of a flower. Their hands brushed accidentally at first, over shared meals, during training exercises, or when crossing narrow paths, but each touch carried an electric charge that neither ignored. Slowly, those fleeting contacts became intentional, a hand resting lightly on a shoulder to steady a stumble, fingers intertwining in quiet moments, the warmth of presence speaking volumes more than words ever could. One evening, under a sky heavy with stars, Sasuke surprised Naruko with a small picnic by the riverbank. He had gathered a selection of her favorite snacks and a few wildflowers he had picked along the way. They sat side by side on a soft blanket, the sound of water murmuring nearby, the world hushed around them. The air between them was thick with the comfort of shared silence and the unspoken understanding of what their bond had become. Naruko glanced at him, cheeks flushed by the cool breeze and something more tender. "You always know how to surprise me," she said softly. Sasuke's dark eyes met hers, steady and warm. "I like seeing you smile." The simplicity of his words struck her with unexpected force. She shifted closer, their shoulders touching, their breaths mingling in the cool night air. Their dates grew more intentional over time, not grand affairs, but meaningful. They explored the village festivals with newfound ease, navigating crowds hand in hand. They challenged each other to friendly contests, from shuriken throwing to climbing trees, always with laughter ringing between them. At night, they often met under the same cherry blossom trees where their journey had quietly begun, the petals drifting around them like delicate confessions. Through every shared experience, their connection deepened. They learned each other's rhythms, the way Sasuke's brows furrowed when he was deep in thought, the spark of mischief that lit Naruko's eyes when she was about to tease him. They supported each other through struggles, celebrated small victories, and found strength in the quiet knowledge that they weren't alone. Their relationship was a tapestry woven from moments big and small, each one unique, none repeated, but all threading together to form something beautiful and enduring. Their dates were never planned with the pomp or grandeur of the great shinobi festivals or official missions. Instead, they blossomed from the quiet comfort of being together, small adventures that carried the magic of discovery. One of their earliest dates began simply enough. Sasuke had invited Naruko to join him on a walk to the village's edge, where a small grove of ancient trees stood, rumored to be sacred. The path was dappled with sunlight filtering through the leaves, and the soft rustle of the breeze seemed to whisper secrets. Naruko came prepared with a small basket of homemade snacks, and Sasuke carried a pouch of freshly picked herbs he wanted to show her. They talked about everything and nothing, their voices low, punctuated by laughter that felt freer than usual. At one point, Sasuke reached out to steady Naruko as she stepped over a tangled root, and their hands lingered just a moment longer than necessary. That day, they shared wild berries and stories, sitting beneath the canopy as the sunlight danced on their faces. It was simple, yet perfect in its intimacy. Another afternoon, Sasuke surprised Naruko by taking her to a quiet stream tucked away from the village bustle. They removed their shoes and waded into the cool water, the gentle current swirling around their ankles. Naruko squealed when Sasuke splashed her playfully, and before long, they were chasing each other along the bank, laughter echoing through the trees. They rested on the shore, dripping wet and breathless, Sasuke handing Naruko a soft cloth to dry her face. The closeness was electric, their shared smiles speaking volumes. On a crisp autumn evening, the village held a lantern festival. Sasuke and Naruko wandered among glowing lights, each carrying a lantern of their own. The sky was a tapestry of twinkling stars, mirrored by the soft glow of hundreds of floating lanterns rising into the night. Naruko's heart fluttered as Sasuke carefully lit the candle inside her lantern, their fingers brushing as he passed her the flame. They released their lanterns side by side, watching them drift upward, carrying their quiet wishes. The moment was gentle, wrapped in the soft hum of village celebration and the steady rhythm of two hearts quietly growing closer. In the winter, when the first snow dusted the village rooftops, Sasuke took Naruko to a hidden hill overlooking the valley. They built a small fire, sharing warmth and stories as the snowflakes fell softly around them. Naruko's laughter melted the cold air, and Sasuke found himself stealing glances at her rosy cheeks and bright eyes. Before parting, Sasuke wrapped his scarf around Naruko's shoulders, the fabric warm and comforting. She smiled shyly, leaning into the small gesture. Each date, no matter how simple, was a thread weaving their hearts closer. They treasured the little things, the brush of hands, shared smiles, and moments of quiet understanding. Their relationship grew naturally, unhurried and full of tenderness, a garden flourishing in the sunlight of their shared time. As spring slipped fully into summer, Naruko and Sasuke's outings grew more varied and adventurous, each one an opportunity to explore not just the world around them, but the quiet, blossoming connection between their hearts. One sunny morning, Sasuke suggested they visit the village's training grounds early, before the usual crowd gathered. The air was crisp and the earth soft beneath their feet. They challenged each other to friendly races across the field, the sound of their laughter blending with the rustling leaves. Naruko's competitive spirit shone brightly, while Sasuke's calm focus grounded them both. Afterward, they lay on the grass, watching the clouds drift lazily across the blue sky. Naruko traced shapes with her finger, telling Sasuke what she saw: a flying bird, a dragon, a heart. Sasuke listened quietly, occasionally glancing at her with a softness she had come to cherish. On another occasion, they ventured into the village's bustling marketplace, a vibrant swirl of colors, sounds, and smells. Naruko dragged Sasuke to a stall selling colorful hand-painted fans, her fingers dancing over the delicate designs. Sasuke watched her with an amused smile as she chose one with a bold red and gold phoenix. As they walked together through the throng, a group of their classmates spotted them. A few exchanged knowing looks, whispers trailing behind as the two moved closely, the fan occasionally fluttering between their joined hands. Naruko felt a sudden flush but squeezed Sasuke's hand tighter, a silent promise that whatever others thought didn't matter. One afternoon, Sasuke surprised Naruko with a visit to the village's small library. Nestled between ancient scrolls and dusty bookshelves, they found a quiet nook to share stories. Sasuke showed her a collection of old legends, his voice low and captivating. Naruko listened intently, fascinated by the tales of brave heroes and hidden magic. Their closeness didn't go unnoticed. From across the room, a familiar voice whispered, "Look at them." Finally, Naruko caught Sasuke's eye, and they exchanged a shy smile, hearts beating a little faster. During a rainy afternoon, unable to train outdoors, they found shelter in a small tea house. Sitting side by side, warm cups in hand, they watched raindrops race down the windows. Naruko shyly rested her head on Sasuke's shoulder, a quiet gesture that said more than words could. A fellow ninja who happened to stop by for tea paused, raising an eyebrow but saying nothing, respect clear in the glance. As days turned to weeks, the village began to notice the subtle changes, the way Naruko's laughter was softer around Sasuke, how Sasuke's eyes lingered on her a moment longer, how their hands found each other naturally in crowds or quiet moments. Though no one spoke openly, the whispers grew, gentle and affectionate rather than teasing. Naruko and Sasuke, wrapped in the tender bubble of their own world, felt the village's quiet approval, but cared only for the small universe they were building together, one moment, one smile, one touch at a time. The soft murmurs of the village had begun to reach their ears, subtle glances exchanged, quiet words spoken just a little too loudly when they passed by, the gentle teasing from friends who smiled knowingly. It was clear that their closeness had not gone unnoticed. Yet, within this growing awareness, Naruko and Sasuke found their own sanctuary, a place where only they existed. One evening, after the sun had dipped below the horizon and the village lights flickered softly, Sasuke invited Naruko to meet him by the edge of the forest, a place where the trees arched high and the shadows played gently with the moonlight. They sat side by side on a fallen log, the cool night wrapping around them like a comforting cloak. Naruko broke the silence first, her voice low and tentative. "Do you think people talk about us?" Sasuke looked up at the stars, then back to her. "Maybe. But what they say doesn't change how I feel." Her heart fluttered at his words. Naruko reached out slowly, her hand brushing against his. The contact was soft, hesitant, like the first snow of winter settling quietly on the ground. Sasuke turned his hand, enclosing hers gently. "Sometimes," he admitted, voice almost a whisper, "I wonder if I'm ready for this. For us." Naruko squeezed his hand, reassuring. "I think that's okay. We don't have to rush anything." They sat close, letting the silence speak the feelings their words couldn't fully capture. Later, as they stood to leave, Sasuke hesitated, then stepped a little closer. Naruko's breath hitched. "I don't want to hide anymore," he said quietly. "Not from you, not from anyone." Her smile was soft, filled with relief and hope. "Neither do I," she whispered back. That night, their hands stayed clasped longer than before, a silent vow between them, a promise that whatever the world said, they would face it together. In the days that followed, their moments alone grew richer. In the quiet corner of the training grounds, Sasuke would rest his forehead against Naruko's, sharing a breath, a heartbeat. Naruko, in turn, found comfort in leaning into his steady presence, feeling the steady thrum of his strength beneath her fingertips. During late-night talks under the stars, they shared fears, dreams, and secrets, the kind that only two people truly trusting each other can. They learned that love wasn't just about grand gestures or declarations, but about showing up, again and again, even when it felt uncertain. Their bond became a refuge, a place of safety amid the chaos of their lives. And as they held each other close, the quiet strength of their love grew, steady, unwavering, and deeply, beautifully theirs. The peaceful rhythm of their growing closeness was suddenly disrupted by a whisper that turned into a ripple, and then a wave they couldn't ignore. The village elders had taken notice of the subtle changes in how Naruko and Sasuke carried themselves, the way they sought each other out, the unmistakable closeness between them. One afternoon, just as the sun was climbing high in the sky, the two were called to the council chamber, a place usually reserved for matters of great importance. The heavy wooden doors closed behind them with a finality that made their hearts beat faster. Sitting before them were the village elders, faces lined with wisdom and concern. Naruko, Sasuke, the head elder began, voice calm but firm, "We have observed your closeness. It is clear that your bond is more than friendship." Naruko exchanged a quick glance with Sasuke. Their secret, carefully guarded, was no longer hidden. The elder continued, "The village values your growth as shinobi, but also the importance of honesty and trust within our community. Keeping your relationship secret puts you both under unnecessary strain and could lead to misunderstandings." Sasuke's jaw tightened, but Naruko spoke gently, "We didn't mean to hide anything out of disrespect. We just weren't sure how to face it." The elders nodded thoughtfully. "We understand the difficulty. But from now on, the village will support you both openly. It is time to accept and embrace what you share." Walking out of the council chamber, the weight of their secret lifted, replaced by a mixture of relief and nervousness. Naruko squeezed Sasuke's hand. "It's scary, but maybe it's good. We don't have to pretend anymore." Sasuke's usual calm softened. "I want to stand with you, no more hiding." With the village's quiet blessing, their relationship was no longer a secret shadow but a part of their lives openly acknowledged. At first, some friends were surprised, others curious, but soon everyone accepted the new reality. Their bond became an inspiration, a reminder that courage isn't just on the battlefield but in the heart. Naruko and Sasuke faced the future together, stronger than ever, ready to grow not just as shinobi but as two souls who had found home in each other. The days following the elder's declaration felt like stepping into a new world for Naruko and Sasuke. The secret they had carried between themselves was no longer a hidden thread but a bright, visible strand woven into the fabric of their lives. The shift brought a mixture of emotions, relief, excitement, and a touch of vulnerability. At first, their friends approached them with curious smiles and gentle questions. Sakura, who had always been close to Naruko, was the first to give a warm, approving hug. "I'm really happy for you both," she said, her eyes shining with sincerity. "It's about time." Even those who had been quiet or uncertain began to show support. Kakashi, their sensei, gave a rare smile, reminding them to stay true to themselves while continuing to grow stronger as ninjas. Naruko and Sasuke found themselves no longer needing to hide the small things, like sharing meals openly, training side by side, or simply sitting close in the village square. They walked together with heads held high, feeling the quiet strength of acceptance around them. One afternoon, as they rested beneath the cherry blossom trees where so many of their memories had blossomed, Sasuke took Naruko's hand, his fingers curling around hers gently. "It feels different now," he said quietly, "like I can breathe easier." Naruko nodded, her smile soft and sure. "Me too. I was scared at first, what if people treated us differently? But it feels right. Like we belong." Their friends often joined them, sharing stories, laughter, and plans for future missions. The sense of community deepened, weaving a safety net of support around their relationship. Challenges still arose, whispers, cautious looks, but with each day, Naruko and Sasuke grew stronger together, their bond a beacon of courage and hope. In quiet moments, when the world slowed and it was just the two of them, they found comfort in their shared journey, knowing that whatever lay ahead, they would face it hand in hand, their love no longer a secret, but a proud truth. The village buzzed softly with the news, but within the circle of those closest to Naruko and Sasuke, the change felt more personal, more immediate. Sakura, ever vibrant and full of heart, was the first to reach out. She pulled Naruko into a tight hug one afternoon beneath the cherry blossoms, her voice warm and sincere. "I'm so proud of you both. You deserve happiness, and it's beautiful to see you together." Her support was a steady flame, a reminder that friendship could be the strongest foundation for love. Kakashi, their sensei, showed his approval in his quiet way. During training, he'd occasionally glance their way with a rare softness in his eyes. After one session, he approached them, his mask slipping just enough to reveal a small smile. "You both fight well as individuals, but even better as a team. Trust in each other, that's the true strength of any bond." His words, though simple, carried the weight of wisdom and encouragement. Shikamaru was predictably relaxed about the whole thing, but with his usual dry wit. "About time you two stopped pretending you weren't inseparable. Honestly, it's a relief. Now we don't have to guess why you're always together." His easy acceptance helped ease any lingering tension, turning the attention from speculation to genuine care. Ino, a longtime friend of Naruko's, greeted the news with enthusiastic cheer. "Finally! You two are perfect together." She delighted in helping Naruko pick out new accessories, sometimes playful teasing sparking between Sasuke and her. These light moments added laughter and joy to their growing closeness. Among others, there was curiosity, gentle teasing, and above all, support. In the quiet after the initial flurry, Naruko and Sasuke found themselves often retreating to their favorite spot beneath the ancient cherry tree, the place where their journey had quietly begun. There, they could speak freely, without eyes watching, without words left unsaid. One evening, the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of amber and pink. Sasuke held Naruko's hand, his thumb tracing soft circles against her palm. "I never imagined feeling this kind of peace," he murmured, voice steady but tender. "With you, everything feels possible." Naruko's heart swelled. She leaned into him, resting her head lightly against his shoulder. "You make me believe in the future, Sasuke. Not just as a shinobi, but as someone who's found home." The cherry blossoms fluttered down around them like whispered blessings, petals soft as their promises. In that moment, with the world quiet and their hearts open, they understood that their love was not just a secret or a spark, it was a steady flame, lighting the way ahead. Hand in hand, they faced the horizon, ready to write the next chapters of their story together, with courage, laughter, and endless hope. Thank you all for reading this fanfiction. I hope you enjoyed the story and the journey of Naruko and Sasuke as much as I enjoyed writing it. If you liked it, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to my channel for more content like this. Your support means a lot. Warm regards. 6 Path Weeb.